Good morning, Unity. Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. I know it's beautiful outside, but you came with your heart and you're happy. So please do not be afraid to get up out of your seats. Do a little dance with me. I want you to feel the joy, peace, and love in this song, okay? All right, we'll do it together. Start my day with love. Wanna start my day with love. That's what I get more of, is love. I start my day with love. Wanna start my day with love. That's what I get more of, is love. I choose love, love.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, don't ever think you've outgrown being surprised. Last week, I had a birthday party at my house. My wife, Norma, wonderful, faithful, loving Norma, set it up so that I would have a party. And of course, some friends, just a few friends from the church and family. Just Cintisha and her family came up, and my son Shad was in town, so he showed up. And I knew the party was coming on Tuesday night, and I thought there'd be no surprises. I've been around such a long time. How could I be surprised? The day before Tuesday, I'd called my other son in Austin, Texas, and he was fighting the floods in his house because all of his pipes froze and broke, and he was patching them up and fixing them and plastering the walls where he had a breakthrough and everything. I called him on the day before to see how he was doing, if there's anything, that I could help him with some way, maybe, send him some money or something. Anyway, that was the day before, and I really felt for him, wanted to put my arms around him, hug him, because I knew he was going through a lot of trouble. But on Tuesday night, he appeared at my party. That's when you know you're loved.
It was a great party. Jack got a little out of control, but I got it all on film. If anyone wants to see it, come into my office following the service. It's worth seeing. A few quick announcements. We are having our spring equinox celebration March 19th. That's a Friday at 7 p.m. That's going to be led by both Norma and Cintisha, and weather permitting, we are going to try and do it out here by the garden. It's a lot more fun when we get to do it outside. If not, we'll do it over here in Fellowship Hall. It's a free event, but an offering for unity will be taken. So if you've never been to one of the spring equinox events led by Norma, they're a blast. And last, I know everyone has their own thoughts and feelings about wearing masks and this and that. It's not my favorite thing to do in the world, but per county regulations, we just want to give everyone a quick reminder. We do have to ask everyone who's coming in person into our building that they do have to wear a mask. We just have to do what the county says for right now to make sure we stay open for all of you, so you can come and enjoy these wonderful services. There's different rules and regulations for us, for restaurants, for everything, but these are based off the county's rules specifically for churches and spiritual centers. So I do appreciate you all helping us out with that. Thank you very much.
Good morning. The song is called Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield. I am unwritten, can't read my mind. I'm undefined. I'm just beginning, the pen's in my hand, ending unplanned, staring at the blank page before you. Open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find, reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions, feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Drench yourself in words unspoken, live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins, the rest is still unwritten. Yeah. I break tradition. Sometimes my tribes are outside the lines. Yeah, yeah. We've been the dirty window. Let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions, feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Drench yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. The rest is still unwritten. Staring at the blank page before you. Open up the dirty window. Let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Drench yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where you feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Drench yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. The rest is still unwritten. The rest is still unwritten. Oh, the rest is still unwritten. The rest is still unwritten.
Thank you, Nicole, for that awesome way to start. And April Joy, she was before Nicole Williams. Such talent in this center. We're so blessed to have such gorgeous singers, and they're both going to be soloists in our Easter cantata that's going to be taking place in just 4 weeks from today. We will probably be having 3 services where we'll be giving tickets out that are free for the service. If you'll want to pick those up, they'll start being available next week because we can only have 100 people in the sanctuary, so we'll be doing 3 so you have a ticket to come in. And everybody will be sitting 6 feet apart, and it will keep it COVID safe. So that will be really awesome, and it's going to be quite the production this year. It's our first production since COVID happened, so it's so nice to finally see some normalcy returning. So today, that song was really, really appropriate. It always is the case. I don't pick what the music is going to be when I'm going to speak, but it just, every single time, the opening number and that was just like, oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear before I walked out here. So today's talk sermon title is The Secret Place of the Most High. And for many of you, you've been attending for the last few months. It's been a time of absolute uprooting in my life, and I think it has been for all of us. I think the experience of going through COVID, we kind of went into shock for about 6 months of it and just, participated and followed the rules and did everything we needed to do to keep safe. And then there was a sense of losing everything that we were used to and trying to find out how do we pick up the pieces and what is the next phase of life. We're still in this pandemic and things haven't completely lifted, but we know there's this inner calling, this inner longing to come back to something even greater than we had before. And, I've talked before about the fact that even before COVID happened, we were isolating ourselves on a very dangerous level as far as, living on Facebook and, communicating only through text and communicating through emails. And we were stopping that human community way of communicating, which was through a telephone or speaking in person, and taking the time to meet with the heartbeat of the earth and to move at that pace, instead of keeping up at this technological pace that is not reasonable for or conducive for a good, happy life. Our lives were spiraling out of control as it is, and maybe there was a purpose in this pandemic, and to find that one of the things we've realized is being forced to be isolated created this longing, this wanting for community, for a conversation over coffee, those little simple things that we took for granted. And as things are opening up, we're becoming more aware of what we actually want. Sometimes it takes us to have the contrast of something that we don't want to discover what we do. Right? When I teach my prosperity classes, on the first class, and I say them to this, because what we speak and what we feel about our finances or about our lives, I always say that prosperity is not about money only. It's about wholeness in your relationships, wholeness in your financial life. It's wholeness in every area of your life that is what you function in. And when there's something limited or a belief system that we hold around our relationship or around our money, then we are actually manifesting more of the thing that we don't want. So at the first class, I have a questionnaire that they write down all the things that aren't working in their life. They write down where things are financially, where things are in the relationship, where things are as far as them contributing and being selfless in service, where they are in showing up for their children. And they get a really good, vivid visual of what is going on in their life. They get a chance to share it with groups when we could work in small groups. Remember that way back when? I miss teaching those classes, but it's like impossible for me to teach them right now because it needs that community mirroring aspect for that authenticity and that all of that good, yummy discovery that happens when we work with others. So they get to share it, and then they're told that for the next 5 weeks, they are not to speak to the ill areas of their lives. They're not to speak to their financial situation. They're not to speak about their relationship. That they now create a visualization or an affirmation around the areas of their life that are no longer serving them well, and change their language, what they feel about it, and how they see it in their mind's eye. And it's like you're tricking yourself to get out of this default bad habit of complaining, really, is what it is. So a lot of them put a bracelet on that's there to remind them to be in the presence, to be aware of what they're thinking and what they're saying and what they're feeling about their life, and saying it's a blessing, or I'm so blessed, finding words of gratitude, finding a way to come back to a place where, oh, I can change this. Oh, I can shift this. Oh, because God is greater than this limited way I'm conducting myself in this world, in a limited way that I'm conducting and showing up in my life. So in the Lessons in Truth, it writes this: there is nothing the human heart so longs for, so cries out after, as to know God. Whom to know aright is life eternal. With the restlessness that we see, people are ever shifting from one thing to another, always hoping to find rest and satisfaction in some anticipated accomplishment or possession. People fancy that they want houses and great learning or power. They pursue these things and gain them only to find themselves still restless, still unsatisfied. At the great heart of humanity, there is a deep and difficult homesickness that never has been and never can be satisfied with anything less than a clear, vivid consciousness of the indwelling presence of God, our Father. In all ages, earnest people who have recognized this inner hunger as the heart's cry after spirit have left seeking after things and have sought by devoted worship and by service to others to enter into this consciousness. But few have succeeded in reaching the promised place where their joy is complete. In John 16:24, it says in the Bible, "Until now you have not asked for anything in my name. Ask, and you will receive, and your joy will be complete. Until now, you have not asked for anything in my name. Metaphysically, I'm going to break this down because we don't believe in this separate Jesus or a God that's outside of ourselves. We believe God is energy. God is the ebb and flow of life that's in all, through all, in everyone, and everybody's born perfect in the image of God, which is perfection. So to ask a question in his name is to recognize that him is a part of us. To speak from a resonance of the most conscious part of ourselves that we came into this world as. And then life started to talk us out of this divinity. That's why we have this longing and this calling to have this connection and this divinity restored in us, because innately at our core, we knew it originally. So to ask for something in my name is to ask, Father, Mother, God that's dwelling in me, help me find a job. Father, Mother, God that's indwelling in me, help me be divinely guided to the healing that I'm seeking in my life. Father, Mother, God, the indwelling spirit that is me as me in movement forward, give me a vision of what's next. I will get out of my way and let you take over and lead my life, because I feel empty. I feel like I'm searching for something and I'm not fulfilled. Father, Mother, God, this indwelling spirit in me, give me a sign and symbol in my dreams. Show me how to find my wholeness, so I may go into this world arriving so fully alive, innately me, who I know I am, but people try to talk me out of it, or I've talked myself out of this majesty that I am. So I've been studying a book with a women's group. We're on the fourth week, this coming up, this next week. But I've been sharing this book. I tend to share the books that we're doing in our women's book group, passages from it, because I'm living it so fully, because, well, first of all, this book is incredible. It's called Wild Edge of Mercy, and we carry it in our bookstore if it touches on anything for you. But it says this on page 55. You forget this truth because the feeling of belonging is rooted in the village, and at times in extended families. It was in this setting that we emerged as a species. It was in this setting that what we require to become fully human was established. Jean Liedloff writes, the design of each individual was a reflection of the experience it expected to encounter. We are designed to receive touch, to hear sounds and words entering our ears that soothe and comfort. We are shaped for closeness and for intimacy with our surroundings. Our profound feelings of lacking something are not a reflection of a personal failure, but a reflection of a society that has failed to offer us what we were designed to expect. What was once man's confident expectation for suitable treatment and surroundings is now so frustrated that a person often thinks of himself lucky if he is not actually homeless or in pain. But even as he is saying, I am all right, there is in him a sense of loss, a longing he cannot name, a feeling of being off-center, of missing something. Asked point blank, he will seldom deny it. Who can relate with that? That you say you're okay, but underneath it, there's something else going on. There's something percolating. Many people are in this hallowed place right now. And it's actually quite exciting because I've been in a hallowed place, and I've shared, I lost a really good friend of mine 2 months ago. And I was keeping above the water with all the demands that this center was calling for me since COVID started, and I was just getting by on raising my 2 teenagers and my marriage and the church and all the need for people's social outlets. They were coming to the ministers to get that. But when my girlfriend passed away, it was like I just sunk under the water. I didn't have anything. I had nothing to give. I was in that self-reflective space that you go when you go into grief. But it wasn't just that I was in the grief of the loss of her. It was the loss of everything we lost this year. I was ready to finally face how I felt about not seeing Gail for the last year, who we lost this last week, because of COVID. And yet, here this last year, all of us loved her from our community, and yet we couldn't hug her or be there with her before she made her transition. Same thing with Dennis, who we lost this last week from our center. I wasn't able to see him and hug him and tell him how much he was important to me and how much I would be missing the 2 of them to their faces. It's all of it. It's just been difficult. But underneath it all, it has created this desire that I don't want to conduct my life the same way I was. I've got to start enjoying this thing. You know, I have 2 teenagers. I don't know if anybody's ever been through that, but it's it's a lot. I have a 24-year-old daughter who is just like the most perfect child, so I just thought I was going to squeak by without ever having that teenager, which I was for my parents. And like my parents would always say, that apple's not going to fall far from the tree, and you're going to experience what it's like to raise someone like you. And now, right at COVID, it just hit. Boom! This 13-year-old child appeared, my daughter, and it was like, whoa, okay. So, feeling that sense of feeling fractured and wanting to know how we can put the pieces back together, but put them back together better, right? So maybe talking about ceremonies and things like that. Grew up in a family that went to sweat lodges and went to Native American dances because my mom is Native, and so we would get into private, actual corn dances and snake dances, and the ones that the people from the outside of the tribes do not get to actually witness. So you get to really witness these incredible ceremonies where magic literally appears in front of your eyes. And it was an incredible gift as a child to witness these type of things, because now you realize there is something out there. There is something greater than just this human experience. One of the ones that really stands out was a corn dance where we were at the Hopi Reservation. It was dark. There was a really haunting song that they were singing. It was creepy. Like, as a little kid, it was like your worst nightmare kind of a number. It was like, whoa, this is haunted wild. And there's dancing going on. And all of a sudden, from the ground, these huge costumes are appearing of people in Kachina dolls. You've seen the Kachina dolls, but they're painted and carved and incredible, and they're like 8 feet tall. And somehow they're appearing out of the ground. We're outside in the middle of nowhere. And it's like one after the other, and just the magic of watching these things appear. The kids are dancing, and they're in those big costumes and the feathers and the whole bit, but these costumes appearing, that vision comes to me a lot, where when I'm thinking about God and thinking about there's this twinkling light that was dancing around these figured people, which I know they were in costumes, but they represented bringing the rain for the corn. And it's like an hour of this haunting music and this incredible people in these beautiful costumes. And then when it ended, the skies opened up and it started pouring rain in the middle of Utah, Arizona border. It's right on the border, actually. They're the land that they live on. And It was dry. We've been camping there forever. We always camped in Arizona and Utah for like a month. Hopefully July, August, when it would be the hottest, most awful experience of your life. But my parents just loved it because nobody was ever there. Well, of course they weren't there because it was freaking hot. They want to be as far from people as possible, considering they worked in ministry as well. And I'm not like that, but they needed to decompress. So to be days and days and days in the driest weather ever, and then to witness a dance, and then to see the sky open up with water was, whoa, okay. You know, the little kid in me takes that in. You know, if you can get your kids to get an opportunity where they actually get to see God in action, that we can actually stir this energy up, and we can actually manifest things. And we can manifest things much greater as a collective. Because it's that collective energy that's there, that's that dancing and that singing and that chanting and that vulnerability and the cries of these shaman singers and the medicine men and the whole thing. So I have a really close friend who came into my life in my early 20s, so we've been friends for over 20 years. We met in the church. And he was when I first met him, he was so beyond his years in his language around spirit and God. His relationship with God was more important than having a girlfriend, getting married, having the kids, all the things we think, to get a house. That was just never in his radar. His radar was all about things of spirit, discovering where spirit lives, how he could be directly connected at all times. And he studied here, and he studied Buddhism. And he traveled abroad, and he meditated with monks, and he did everything to get as deeply connected as possible with spirit. And he always intrigued me because I liked both. I liked tiptoeing on the fence of the spiritual, and then I liked all the good stuff on the other side too, right? And most of us are that, and you dip your toe in the spiritual and you do the other side until you realize this other side's not fulfilling. And then we finally dive into the spiritual side. And that usually happens around 30, 40. But he always just had this direct focus. But there was something broken in him, and I never really knew what it was, but I just always felt intuitively something happened to him. There was something just hurting in his being. I'm a very physical, intuitive person. I can't read a mind, but I can feel somebody's soul, and I can tell when it's not happy or something's off. And I always had this feeling, this kind of a worry about him. Like, what is it that's going on with him? And we got closer and closer, and eventually I did find out what it was. But so he did this path. He studied all these different things, and he told me all the stories, but he hadn't told me one story, and then I finally got a clear picture. And if there's little kids in here, this is kind of a dark story, so it would be good to cover your kids' ears just for a minute. So he was raised in a really bad part of New York with two parents, with a father that was a raging alcoholic and abused his mother. And it was something that he witnessed his whole life till he was 7 years old, when his father went off the deep end one day and was hurting his mom for hours while he hid in another room. And at one point, his dad came in and dragged him out to the middle of the room and took a gun and put it to his head. And he shot it, but there wasn't a bullet in the gun. This changed his life, and I knew there was a stutter in his voice had this timidness. It just never got fully expressed. It didn't have a sound to it. It was like a weakened, like a broken voice. And when he told me this, he said his mom finally got that moment of that mother. The tiger appeared, grabbed that boy, got out of that house, went in that car, and they proceeded to now live in that car for 3 years because they were so poor. Eventually moved down to Florida, and he'd go to the rec center to shower and then go attend school. He tended to be bullied because he was a quiet kid, because he was broken. He had inner trauma. But then about 7 years ago, something happened. He went to a ceremony, and I'm talking about ceremonies because ceremony, I think, is something we're being called to do. It's time to take time together to dance, to sing, to drum, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But he went to it was basically a weekend retreat for renewal and healing. He had felt that he had overcome this issue with all the meditation and all these things, but I could tell he hadn't. There was still a withdrawal. There was still this isolation. There was he was not living fully and intermingling in life. So it was a day of meditation that they did there, and then there was a day of healing work, and all these Reiki people were doing Reiki on each other, and he is like a master Reiki artist. I don't think that's the word, Reiki something. It's not artist, it's healer. And he's partaking in all of that, and by the third day, they were singing and dancing, and it was hours of singing and dancing, and it was the drumming, and it was the bringing up all the feelings that Mother Earth does when we have the musical instruments of nature and the earth, and something overcame him. And while this is all going on, apparently he collapsed. This is all from the people witnessing what he went through, because he completely was in the midst of what this must have looked like for others. Collapsed to the ground and howled from his soul. Howling to the point where he's in convulsions and people are thinking he's having a seizure. To the point where people are saying, call 911, something's wrong with him, right? And he's howling and he's going into sleep states and he's doing all these things. And the leader of this group his name is Panache. He's kind of famous as a guru in this country. Everybody's still dancing, and he just knelt down and he just held the space, calming everybody down like, this is important. They witnessed a person being enveloped by the love of God, who was living fragmented his whole life, thinking that he was living from a state of wholeness. And in the midst of all this love, and all this support, and all this kindness, these days of communing with others, they all just knelt around him and just sent him love. Eventually, he came out of it after about 2 hours, and he is a completely realized version of the person I had originally met. His voice had a kick in it now. It had a boundary when he said something. He had a soul that was finally in his body. Right? You've heard about people when they've done rebirthing and they wrap people in a blanket and they help them rebirth into life to get rid of the fragmented, limited beliefs and the things that kept them from living whole. They get that brokenness out so that they can be birthed into their wholeness. And that experience happened for him. And I remember him calling me and trying to articulate what happened, and I was getting it from his feeling mind place, and I was transported to being in his body as he shared it with me. Eventually it was written so I got to see what it was like for others. But Francis Weller wrote something that I feel was probably a lot like what he witnessed in that moment. When I first consciously faced my own emptiness, it felt like a sheer drop off a cliff. I could not find the way back up. I was floating in a sea of pain and sorrow that had no words. All I could do was try to welcome what came, weep every day, and let those close to me know what I was going through. My story is far from unique. Many of us are running away from the hollowness. The courage it takes to face this emotional vacuum is tremendous. I have never been so fragile, so out of control, so inundated by wave after wave of grief as I was when I finally faced the emptiness within me. When that emptiness appeared, the arms of community were there to hold me. We were meant to drop below the surface of things and to experience the depths of life that our ancestors experienced. Their lives were filled with story, ritual, and circles of sharing. Their lives were not shamefully hidden away, but known. Losses, defeats, grief, pains, joys, births, deaths, dreams, sorrows. The communal draw of life was open and acknowledged. This is what the soul expected, what it is we need today. I like when he says that he was in that empty place and he was crying every day, and he let his friends know that he was in that. That's the hardest part for most people. People wait till they're getting ready for bed and everybody's stowed away to feel the loss and the emptiness of an unfulfilling life. When that's what a church community is for. That's why they've been around since time began. The communal rituals, the communal time to sit and ponder the things of spirit, to ponder the things of the unseen realm that guides and directs us, and we feel it. When we're really doing our practice, we feel it every day. We feel it constantly. But when we've gotten off track and we've been living too much to looking to the world to satisfy, which will always leave us empty, then sometimes we get these nudges. We get a dream. We get chills all over for no reason. And we're reminded, oh, that's right. I'm a beautiful child of God. Therefore, I don't inherit illness or things to fear, and nothing can be stolen or taken away from me. I'm manifesting this because I don't believe in my divinity with this greater power, this greater love that is always in and through everything of our life. But we block it out because it's in the silence. It's in the stopping the noise of the TV that distracts us from this inner longing. We go on that Facebook, we do it because we don't want to feel this feeling of the inner longing. But the thing is that inside of that hallowed place is where the truth lives in our being. And that's where we find those signs and symbols of what is to become written. It might not be written right now, but it's ready to be written. If you're willing to turn the TV off, to turn your phone off for a few hours a day. We're so addicted to that phone. You see when somebody misplaces their phone and how frantic? It's like they lost a child. Because we're so like, I need my distractions. Life is too painful without my distractions. And if you're not willing to feel your grief, then you're never going to heal. Grief is part of love. Your soul feels everything. It's all good. We as a society make grief bad. That's why we feel shame when we feel it. That's why we hide to our bedroom to handle it. We don't want to let the kids see that I'm having a hard time right now. God forbid that they realize that I'm only human and I need to connect with my spirituality so that they see through me that I can connect with this greater power, this greater love. And so then they're taught that you can have bad days and that you also have a strength within you that will make you overcome things so you don't have a horrible nightmare later that something happens to your kids because they have no ability to handle anything. We hide from our children so they don't know that we're sad, angry, upset, disappointed. And yet the very truth of our being is what makes our children feel loved. It's what makes our spouses feel loved. It's your authenticity and your honesty that will make you so fully alive. So when you're in joy and happiness, you're so full of joy and happiness. And when you're sad, you're down. But you don't live there because you don't have it constantly sitting there growing because you're not dealing with it. You deal with it when it shows up. You feel it when it shows up. You don't put it somewhere. And you'll notice when you deal with it, it goes like this. Oh, it just needed my attention. Cool. That moved through my body. Oh, I can get back to joy. I can get excited about all these blessings in my life. All of this wonderful beauty that we live here with nature and animals and breath and song. That's never left us. But it's our innermost feelings that have to be so brought into reality so we can feel everything. So my mom and I are going to be doing the spring equinox ceremony on March 19th at 7, and we haven't been able to do an equinox or a solstice ceremony or a song when we do all sorts of ceremonies here throughout the year. Because of that native upbringing and my mom being native, the importance for ceremony is a seasonal thing. It's not something we just do one sweat lodge in our life and are like, okay, I'm good for the rest of my life, right? It's a tune-up. It's getting out of your mind, getting your body and dancing and drumming and letting the spiritual realms just kind of readjust and re-improve. It's like a chiropractic adjustment, an acupuncturist appointment, but it's all in the spiritual. And doing it with others and smiling with others and experiencing the whole heart lifting and lifting and lifting. It's like, oh, thank you, God, I forgot how precious my life is. So, unfortunately, we only have 20 slots, and you have to register ahead of time. So you can register in the bookstore. It's free to register. We just take a tithe that night. And it'll be out in the back field area with a fire if it's warm enough. And if not, it'll be in the fellowship hall. We still make it really magical when it's inside as well. So just letting you know, since we're talking about the equinox. So having this experience and being through my own experiences through ceremony, I had a sweat lodge that I went to about 8 years ago at a big transformative moment in my life, and I went with my mother. I actually had done the sermon that day. It was a Sunday. We actually went to Pasta J's to eat, and when we walked in to the restaurant, Keeney Christie, which many of you know, she's also very native, was telling me that she was going to a sweat lodge that day, which you usually kind of know ahead of time, so you prepare and you cleanse and you make sure you didn't eat something like Pasta J's before you go. So she says, do you and Norma want to join me for the sweat lodge? And I'm going, yes. You know, it's not like you're like, oh, whippy, let's go cook ourselves for 6 hours and face all of our inner troubles and all that. But I knew I needed it. I was so needed at that point because I was making major decisions with my life. And when I went, there were so many people I actually knew that were at that particular sweat lodge, which was really beautiful because it was like seeing old family members, and here we are about to get on that roller coaster of facing self and to have that partnership of family to be with you as you're facing yourself. We got in the hot, it was actually, this one was led by a shamanic woman. It was the first one I'd ever done with a woman leading it. A Mayan woman, right? And she had a little son, like an 11-year-old son that was doing a rite of passage ceremony, so he was actually in this sweat. And it was the hottest sweat I've ever been in. I'm sure my mom it wasn't the hottest she's been in, but we got in there and it's just cooking. I mean, it is just so cooking. And I'm thinking, I must be in the hottest spot of this thing because there's just no way, you know. I'm thinking, I'm all victim about this. This is a nightmare. I cannot breathe. It is so hot. And I'm looking at my mom and she's just so chill and her hair's all long and it's just like, she was like Pocahontas. Her hair's just like, oh, this is so beautiful. This is so amazing. And I'm like dying inside. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I can't breathe. And I'm thinking, I don't want to embarrass her because I look like such a whitey next to my mother who's all native. And I was like, oh, gosh. And I know all these people. And I mean, the children aren't getting out of this thing, but I'm dying. I've got to get out. But you can't get out. And at one point, the woman that's leading it, the Mayan woman, she takes they're dealing with the water and they're putting it on all the rocks. She takes the water and she just whacks me. It's like a slap across my face. And it felt like the best slap I've ever gotten. it knocked the taste out of my mouth, but it was cold, and it was like, thank you, God. And I said, Mom, I can't breathe. I'm really having trouble breathing. And she goes, lay down and stick your lips out from underneath the tent. And I'm literally like, my lips are like, please, God. Just like the cool air on my lips, like, please. This was not the most stellar experience I've had in a sweat, but I was broken. I had come to a limit in my life in a marriage that I was in, and it was really an unhealthy marriage. And I was so scared to take the step to leave. I knew I needed to, but so the lack of breath was me facing myself and my own insecurities of really creating the change I needed to create in my life. And I got it so clear through visions that at one point there was a break and they let us go out. And everybody just piled out of there. And you're wearing long white dresses, right? And they're soaking wet. And everybody's just diving in the dirt, like rolling in the dirt to cool off. And there's just howling crying from every person that was in this sweat. It was a really very powerful night that night. And you're just hearing the bellowing of everyone crying that was in that sweat with me. And I realized I wasn't alone in how I was feeling. That we were all breaking free of some limitation that we were holding. And while I was laying there, felt this sense of God's love, pulsating. It was tactical. You could taste it. You could feel it. My arms are standing on end right now thinking about it. That pulsating feeling of Spirit just being in and through everything. And the message was, everything's going to be okay. Just keep moving forward. Put one front foot in front of the other, and Spirit is going to show you what is to be written. Thank you. Blessings.
We will take an offering for unity now, and we should keep in mind how blessed we are to be studying and practicing the divine beauty of life. And, the beautiful references that Santisha makes to her challenges, they're so uplifting because we all go through challenges, and many of us really don't have any resources. We don't know how to deal with challenges that come our way. But you have to know this, that every challenge you go through is part of God and that divine intelligence. And that intelligence knows about your challenge. And you may be led to a particular ceremony or be led to a book or a teacher or a counseling session. But if you're open, you will find your way to meet whatever challenge you're facing. And it's a beautiful lesson that she gives us on Sunday. So let's keep that in mind, that this Unity Church of Boulder is such a blessing for us all because we come here to share in the spiritual side of living. With that in mind now, I want you to bring to mind whatever financial gift you'd like to make to Unity of Boulder so that we can continue our ministry, which goes on all week. And here are some of the ways that you can use to tithe to us. And certainly, that's what makes things happen here. There's no mother church that supports this church. Every Unity church is autonomous. So it's supported by the gifts of the people that attend. And that's what we do here in Unity of Boulder. So bring to mind what it is you'd like to donate to the Unity Church of Boulder, and let's bless it with this affirmative statement. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive because I give. So it is. And now we have another beautiful musical number by April Joy, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to give her a quick introduction. It's been a couple of weeks since she's been here, about 6, I believe. One of the real gifts I've found working with April is her ability to do what she's going to do, take a pop song, give it a spiritual twist. So I want to please welcome back to our stage April Joy Garten.
Hello. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful intro for me. This song is so special to me, especially because if you guys, I'm sure you know that February is Black History Month. And so this song is truly about the spirit, not just of the color or race or culture you come from. Everybody can connect to God in this way. The song was made famous by Aretha Franklin. So here we go. Looking out on the morning rain, I used to feel so uninspired. And when I thought I'd have to face another day, oh Lord, it made me feel so tired. Before the day I met you, life was so unkind, but you're the key to my peace of mind. You make me feel, Lord, you make me feel, you make me feel like a God-loving woman. When my soul was in the lost and found, oh, you came along and claimed it. I didn't know just what was wrong with me till your love helped me change it. Now I'm no longer doubtful of what I'm living for. Within your love, I can do so much more. You make me feel, Lord, you make me feel, you make me feel like a God-loving woman. Ooh, Spirit, what you done to me. Ooh, it makes me feel so healed inside. And I just wanna be close to you. You make me feel so alive.
Wow,
Yeah?
I like it a
Okay.
lot. Isn't she amazing? Where's Nicole, too? Is Nicole still here? Yeah, come on up here, girl. Mom, come up here and sing with us. Okay. All right, well, that concludes our service. Thank you, Todd and Larry and Louie and Joel. We have the most amazing band here, and we're now able to have 100 people. So we have 50 here today. I know so many of you are watching online. It's safe. We've got so many empty seats here at this point. We can still keep it at 6 feet apart. Let's start coming back into our community and growing this beautiful center and the message that it shares, because it's so healing. All right, let's all rise. We're going to close with our closing song. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. God release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God. Woo!
Special prayer. We have prayer partners right here. If you'd like to pray with someone about a particular challenge you're facing, just remain seated as everybody files out. Our prayer partners will come to you. Take you downstairs for a beautiful meditation room.
Play that again.
Share a prayer with you.
Release. Play I release again.
They've helped me on several occasions, and it really has made a big difference in my life, actually. So, yeah. Have a great week, everybody.
Yep.
Thank you.